What if you heard that sugar, something we eat every day, was largely responsible for the worldwide explosion in obesity and some of the most chronic diseases of our time? And what if you heard that sugar is addictive, and yet it's added to way more food products than you ever imagined? Would you think that was just alarmist bollocks? So the first time I heard all about the sugar being toxic stuff was an American bloke on the telly, and to be honest, I just rolled my eyes because it seems like everything's toxic and bad for you these days. And I don't have a lot of sugar. I have some in my coffee, I have the occasional cronut, and I figure I'm allowed because I exercise. So I just thought, well, how bad can it really be? To find some answers, I'm going to meet one of the world's most vocal critics against sugar. He's the man I saw on the telly, Professor Robert Lustig, and he's become a YouTube sensation.
So we are being poisoned by this stuff, and it's been added surreptitiously to all of our food, every processed food. Okay, and the question is, why? How did this happen?
Professor Lustig is now internationally sought after for his potent anti-sugar message.
Three things that sugar does that these other foodstuffs don't. Liver fat, cell aging, interfering with your brain's functioning to regulate how much to eat. That makes it toxic.
Sugar? Toxic? Isn't that a bit shock jock? After all, water will kill you if you overdo it. Dr. Lustig goes even further. He compares sugar with one of the most toxic substances out there.
It's not the nicotine that's toxic, it's the tars that are toxic. The whole cigarette is toxic.
Professor Lustig, are you saying that the standard of evidence for the toxicity of sugar and the disease-causing effects of sugar are the same as for tobacco?
Absolutely.
How is it that people are still lagging behind in terms of their understanding of the disease-causing effect of sugar?
Nigel, why do you think I'm sitting down talking to you? Because your viewers need to understand that what they've been told, what they've been sold for the last 40 years is a bill of goods that has been designed specifically to make money for the food industry and to hurt them. It's time to change the paradigm.
Well, something's got to change, because more than 65% of Kiwi adults are now obese or overweight, and nearly 33% of children. And as I look around, I'm now wondering how much is sugar implicated in all of this?
So the first question is, how much sugar do you need? And the answer is 0. There are no biological processes in the body that require dietary sugar. Your liver has a capacity to metabolize a finite amount. A little is okay, a lot is not. When you overwhelm your liver's capacity to metabolize it, you get in trouble. And that is what we are seeing.
And he reckons that's because sugar is being slipped into everyday food without us knowing it. So all this stuff has got me thinking about how much sugar is in the food that I would normally buy. So I've come here to a typical supermarket so I can have a look. Right, so spreads. Now, some of the stuff is obvious. You know, your chocolatey, nutty spread, you think that tastes nice. That's bound to have heaps of sugar, and it does. 2 teaspoons of sugar per serving. But you wouldn't expect, I wouldn't expect, say, Marmite. I wouldn't expect to have, to be honest, any sugar in it. But, in fact, it has 11.2 grams times 2.5, 28 grams of sugar in one of these little bottles, which is 7 teaspoons of sugar. I would not have expected 7 teaspoons of sugar in a thing of Marmite. So you couldn't get more Kiwi than this. Tomato sauce. Oh my God. Per serving, right, so per squirt of tomato sauce, it's just over a teaspoon of sugar. So every on the plate, over a teaspoon of sugar. That's I didn't know that. Mayonnaise. We'll go for the light, you know, got the Heart Foundation tick. Okay, for every of mayonnaise that you put on your whatever, that's 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. Quite like tuna. Almost a teaspoon of sugar per serving. Down here, one of the old family favourites, baked beans. That has... good God. Per serving, there's almost 4 teaspoons of sugar. I expect loads of added sugar in fizzy drinks, but it's come as a surprise to find out fruit juice is packed with it as well. Sugar occurs naturally in fruit, which is good, but when it's juiced, you get seriously concentrated sugars. It seems there's no escaping the stuff. What's becoming really clear to me as I'm wandering around and looking at the stuff, all the stuff that I would normally buy, it's not so much that sugar's hidden, but it's kind of hidden in plain sight because it's in almost everything. Without knowing it, I've actually ended up eating quite a lot of sugar without really even thinking about it. Which has got me wondering, why is sugar in just about everything and who decides how much? So I've come along to talk to a food technologist who does that stuff for a living. Here, they develop food products for food companies.
You know, it could be a muesli bar, it could be a dressing, it could be a meal.
Like, I think, why is sugar in everything? I get why it's in ice creams and cakes.
It's cheap, so often it's used to rebalance the cost of a product. For example, a dressing, and it was an oil-based dressing, and you'd take some of the oil out, because it's an expensive ingredient, and bump up the sugar.
So we're looking for the cheaper products, and to make the cheaper products, you've got to put in more sugar to reach that cheap price.
The marketers have a view that the consumers won't go beyond a certain price point.
How do you decide how much sugar to put in?
Well, I guess it's a lot of trial and error. So you taste the product to make sure that everything tastes just right. The product would then be taken to a panel.
Are they qualified tasters? I mean, who are the people on this panel?
Well, smaller companies, it'll generally be like the marketing manager and maybe even the office staff. A larger company might be able to afford to run sensory panels to get feedback from their actual consumers.
What constantly amazes me about the modern world is that marketers, who seem to have a profession built on fluff and wonder, make these really important decisions. Like, of course you would take it to a marketer to see whether the food tastes good rather than someone who's actually a profession, I don't know, but you know what I mean? It's like...
Well, the marketers are meant to know what the consumers want, so if they've done their job properly, they've done the research.
But is it really about consumer demand, or is it about profits?
The food industry has been upping and upping the dose over the past century, and in particular in the past 30 years, and they found that when they did that, we bought more. So this is their juggernaut, this is how they're making money, and they don't want to stop. And they won't stop until they are remanded to stop. The question is, who's going to remand them? That's a question for debate.
I'm discovering that sugar is in just about everything we eat. But when it comes to my own food and lifestyle, I like to think I choose healthy options. This would pretty much be how I would start most mornings. It's a coffee, bit of a plunger. Go with the one sugar, not a lot of sugar. Low-fat milk, because that's what I've always thought you're supposed to have. That's followed with muesli. Nice fibre and oats and all that sort of stuff in it. And I kind of feel like I'm doing all of the right things. So, yeah, I feel like I can eat breakfast with a fairly clear conscience, really. I also take my exercise fairly seriously. About 20 kgs of books, made up with another 15 kgs of rocks. And who needs a gym? You just gotta get a bunch of heavy stuff and apply it to a hill. Crack on. I know this probably seems quite mad to most people, but I've always subscribed to that pretty well accepted theory that it's calories in, calories out. and I like sweet stuff, so if I do this, then I can have my treats. Always cheap. Let me just walk you through the nutritional goodness that is my normal Friday night. First off, we have the Grand Angus Diet Coke, so that's good. This is one of, I think, the crowning achievements of human civilization. It's the crunchy McFlurry. Ooh, look at that. Yeah, I know, but it's only on Friday nights. The rest of the time, I think I'm pretty careful about sugar. But what about us as a nation? I was staggered to find out that the average Kiwi adult now consumes up to a massive 50 kilograms of sugar a year, depending on which study you read. That's around 32 teaspoons of sugar a day, way beyond the World Health Organization recommendations of up to 9 teaspoons for men, 6 for women, and 4 for kids. And the sugar in our diet isn't just about added or free sugars, but also comes complements of refined carbohydrates, which are quickly converted to blood sugar. Stuff like bread and muffins and cake. Could I have one of those lovely cronuts, please, with the almond shavings on top? All that stuff that's cheap and tastes really good. Maybe too good. Angela is your professional, young, life-on-the-run Aucklander. She shops, doesn't exercise, and she is a sugar fiend.
Sunday morning and I'm just having a bit of a snack. Carbs and sugar is essentially my entire diet. So, because I'm not very domesticated, I chose the working life.
Yeah.
I usually have takeaways 3 times a day.
So 3 times a day you would have takeaways?
Yeah.
What are you eating? A burrito, but there's not enough sour cream.
Where can I go that I don't have to cook, that I don't have to do dishes, that doesn't cost me that much? KFC, Burger King, McDonald's. I don't know, it's sort of normal for me.
Why mini jar?
So I eat pretty consistently throughout the day. I'll keep lollies by my desk.
And I'm going to show you my stash that I keep next to my bed, and it's literally within arm's length. And it's actually not that much. It's a lot less than what I usually have.
Now, at the risk of sounding like the crazy girl on the street that comes up and accosts you about your sugar use, do you ever think of yourself as perhaps being a bit of a sugar addict?
I want to say no, but I think it's pretty obvious. Yeah, definitely. I don't know, I think I don't drink, I've never been drunk, I don't smoke, I've never done drugs or anything like that. And I think I'm allowed to have one thing that I'm kind of hopelessly addicted to, I guess. Yeah, and sugar's it for me.
She looks slim and healthy, but I'm seriously worried about Angela, so I'm going to send her to a registered nutritionist.
I'm really nervous. I think it's like going in to get a growling from your parents before you get the growling.
I have never seen a diet that bad in an adult before.
So nervous, I'm sorry.
For so long.
I'm actually like freaking my nails. Okay, that's not good.
People in your circumstances tend to feel like they're bulletproof.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't think about diet and the effects that it might have in 20 years or 25 years' time. If you keep going down this track in terms of your diet, you're only really inviting those chronic illnesses that you keep hearing about.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah.
A serious reality check. Because if Angela keeps this diet up, she could well join the estimated 250,000 Kiwis who are currently diabetic. Here at Middlemore Hospital in South Auckland, they're dealing with the fallout. 580 people are now hooked up to have their blood cleaned and purified by dialysis machines. And the rate of admission is going up by 10% a year, which roughly matches the national statistics. I'm meeting the clinical head of diabetes, Dr. Brandon Orr-Walker. Brendan, this looks expensive.
Yeah, no, dialysis is a very, very expensive business. The machines, the very high requirements of staff. It's somewhere in the order of $50,000 to $100,000 per year per person.
year.
And that's the dialysis costs. Many of these patients, because of their kidney disease, for those that have got diabetes and other problems, have additional costs to do with the poor blood flow to their feet, problems with their heart, vision and so forth. And so there'll be other direct health costs. But even above that, there is the cost that many of these people are people who could be working, who are now having to interrupt their lives to be stuck on a machine. So it has indirect costs which are far, far greater. It's a huge burden on the health system.
So, like, fundamentally right now, there may well be millions of dollars of health costs just in this room.
Absolutely.
Just now.
Absolutely. Useful.
Māori and Pacifica are most prone to this disease. It's affecting young and old and is largely obesity related. What's your view about the connection between sugar and obesity and diabetes and all these health problems?
Oh, there's a very clear link between sugar consumption and carbohydrate consumption and diabetes at a population level.
Early intervention could have made the difference, but instead, Middlemore is landed with the high cost of intensive care after the fact. As a clinician, as someone who works with this stuff, how should we, as the general public, think about sugar in our diet?
The simplest of those really is to reduce sugary intake, and the simplest to identify that adds no other nutritional value would be to reduce the consumption of sugary beverages. Are you having much pain in your foot from the operation?
No.
No? So Nigel, Mr. Chan's a patient similar to those we often see in hospital who's got a lot of complications from his diabetes.
Those complications resulted in infections and amputation of his big toe.
But he's also got other complications. He's got some difficulty with his eyes and his kidneys and his nerves.
What do you think caused your diabetes?
Well, in fact, I was taking too much sugar. That's what it happened to me.
Even though I've got a family history of diabetes, you know, to me it was, oh, Mum's taking her pills, Dad's taking his.
Marilyn is 53. She's had diabetes for 20 years and has a long list of related complications.
My retinal have come away from the walls. I've got cataracts forming in both eyes. Yeah, I've had a stent put in.
In your
It
heart?
was last year, yeah.
Coronaries? How often are you having dialysis and how much time does it take?
3 days a week I come, and I'm on 4 hours.
4 hours
for
each
of
time.
those times that I come.
What things now, you know, if you had your time again, would have made a difference for you, do you think?
My diet, eating all these sugary things that I shouldn't have been.
What sort of things were they thinking about just in any day?
I was eating a dozen apple donuts,
Truly?
and eating chocolates and lollies and, you know, heaps of sugar in my cup of tea and
How many
fizzies.
teaspoons?
Teaspoons of sugar, I'd have about 4.
Marilyn, people talk about that you can get addicted to sugar, that you kind of have to have it. Did it feel like that for you when you were having lots of sugar?
I had to have my lollies, you know, the really sweet, like a packet of jelly beans. That amount of sugar is a lot. I had to have it. For me, this is what happened to me with my love of sugar.
I love sugar too, but all of this is starting to give me a few nagging doubts. What about my blood sugar levels? So I'm going to have my blood tested for good measure. Sugar is strongly implicated in the worldwide obesity explosion and obesity-related diseases. For my part though, I reckon I'm pretty sensible about food and exercise. So just quietly, I'll be pretty confident that I'm doing all right in terms of the health stuff and the diet stuff, but I've had a blood test and I've kept a food diary for a couple of weeks. And I've come for an appointment with Dr. Mickey Willardin, the registered nutritionist, to see how I'm doing.
Well, I've got your results, Nigel.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to like what I've got to say.
Oh dear.
Actually.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not drastically terrible deathbed stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, but actually, it's not something to be taken too lightly.
Okay.
Yeah, so the ones which I'm concerned about are in fact your triglycerides.
Because they're bad, aren't they?
They are bad, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Just so you know, triglycerides are a type of fat found in the blood.
triglycerides are a sign of excess sugar in the diet. So it just makes the blood like a little bit stickier,
Yep.
which increases the risk of clotting, which can increase the risk of heart attacks.
And the bad news just keeps coming.
The recommended level from the National Heart Foundation would be that you'd have them below 1.7
Yep.
millimoles per litre, and yours are actually at 2.4.
That seems quite high.
It is actually quite high. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. You know, you look fairly fit and fairly lean, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not at risk of inflammation and heart disease.
That was unexpected and, to be honest, quite shocking, because I thought this would just be the, oh, yep, you're great, you've got an outstanding diet, and instead I discover that actually I've got my diet and my blood results are actually quite concerning. And it's like, I'm 46, I shouldn't have concerning blood results at this point. So, yeah, like, it's suddenly become less a bit of a tally doddle, and I'm thinking, shit, I need to really seriously change some things in my diet and look at what I'm eating. It seems like everything I've been led to believe about eating may well be wrong. But why is sugar suddenly the bad guy? All of my life, I've believed that old dietary line that it's about fat. So you eat low fat, which means you eat less fat, which means you don't get fat. The low-fat revolution really took hold in the 70s and 80s as alarm grew over heart disease. The family roast with its natural saturated fats was out, and low fat was in.
When they took the fat out of the food tasted like cardboard. Food industry knew that. Had to do something. So what'd they do? Dump in the sugar.
And not just that, low fat didn't make us any thinner. In fact, just the opposite. We've got steadily fatter and unhealthier as the sugar in our diet has increased. So that's it. High sugar's out for me. Refined carbohydrates are getting the heave as well. At Nelson Hospital, they directly implicate the white stuff with another incredibly serious health risk.
Keep talking to him. Take good care of her.
This time, it's the impact soft drinks and juices are having on children's dental health. I'm in the theatre with Dr. Rob Beaglehole and his team. What size problem are we dealing with here?
In terms of the number of children having their teeth extracted each year, it's a huge number. Last year, 34,000 children aged under 14 had one or multiple teeth extracted for dental reasons. And we also know that this number has been increasing year after year.
So Rob, because even to a muppet like me, that looks like this thing's gone wrong there.
Well, that's right, Nigel. What I can see here is that all of these front teeth here have holes or dental decay.
Yeah.
That these shadows here decay. What we can also see is the permanent teeth up here.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, this tooth here, which has decay into the nerve and is black in the mouth, is going to need to be extracted.
It's worse than I imagined and totally preventable.
That tooth's coming out. We heard from the parents that they admitted that they had a diet high in sugary drinks, and we know that sugary drinks is the #1 source of sugar in the New Zealand diet for children. The mother was talking about Coca-Cola in her baby bottle.
Think about people going up at a nanny state, but sometimes you actually need a nanny.
So this general anaesthetic is costing approximately $5,000 for taxpayers.
Yeah. I guess the thing that really struck me is standing watching this, the room was full of anaesthetists, there were dentists, there were house surgeons, there were theatre nurses, there was all the kit that was in there was 3 hours worth of theatre time, and I just kept thinking, like, none of this needed to be. In the end, this little girl had 6 teeth extracted under general anaesthetic, which is a potentially dangerous procedure at the best of times. What implications does it have if you lose 6 teeth?
Well, she's going to have eating problems, she's going to have aesthetic problems, socialising problems, and also, unfortunately, she's going to have major orthodontic issues, which is going to involve complex orthodontic treatment later down to try and move the teeth around.
And as I soon learned, she was just one of several treated by Rob and his team today.
How old is this child again?
She's just turned 2.
Just turned 2. On these front 4 teeth, there's actually no tooth surface left. All we can see is roots. So this child has been in a lot of pain.
So this is literally, the soft drink has dissolved the tooth to the gum line.
To such an extent, and it may have only taken about 6 months for this to happen. But we can see that the nerve is actually bleeding. I haven't even started yet.
As a parent, this is excruciating to watch.
Look at that infection.
What really smacks you in the face about all of that is that you've got a whole operating theatre full of really qualified people. That's about 5 grand's worth of theatre time, let alone the fact we could be doing other stuff with it, to pull teeth out of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds because they're drinking too many sugary soft drinks. It's utterly preventable and it's utterly wrong. So just how much sugar goes into the soft drinks that are rotting our kids' teeth? So the likes of this one here, right, your pretty standard 1.5 litres.
Divided by 4, we get 40 teaspoons.
40 teaspoons of sugar.
Out of the 33,000 items that are sold in an average supermarket, that is the #1 selling item.
This is green. That must be good. Surely it's green. This one's worse. It's got 12.6 grams.
We get 47 teaspoons of sugar.
So this has the better part of 50, if we're going to round it up.
Almost 50 teaspoons.
47 teaspoons of sugar. And this is your standard kid's birthday party fare?
Exactly. And if we have a look at this product here, this serving size is 1 and it has 600 mils. We get 16 teaspoons of sugar.
And if a kid has it?
Then they're having 5 days worth of sugar.
So this is
in one hit.
5 days worth of sugar in a bottle?
Exactly.
Good God. I'm genuinely surprised by this. I had no idea. So now, I want to find out what the food industry has to say. In discovering just how much sugar we all consume, I've made some quite big changes to my own life. I've been following my nutritionist, Mickey Willardon's advice, for the last 2 months, and now I've come back to see whether that advice has had any impact on my previously dangerously high triglyceride levels. All right, Mickey, so a couple of months in, what did the blood show?
Well, Nige, you've got some really good results from it. So your triglycerides, last time that we spoke, they were up at about 2.4, and they've dropped down to 1.5, which is great.
That's good. Really good. Because those previously high fat levels in my blood could lead to strokes and heart attacks. And there's more good news. I lost about 3.5 kg in about 10 days. And it's all here. Like I've gone in a belt size.
Don't waste time.
Big implications for me, and there are potentially big implications for the world economy as well. Credit Suisse, one of the world's leading banks, has also weighed into this debate, directly linking the consumption of excess sugar with the worldwide increase in type 2 diabetes, obesity, and a thing called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome includes high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess cholesterol, and body fat, all of which increase your risk of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes, and brought on in large part, Credit Suisse claims, by too much sugar. They surveyed GPs in Europe, Asia, and the US and 90% of them believed that that was the case.
Food industry doesn't want to hear this. This is anathema to them. So what do you think they're going to say? Shonky science, lousy, poorly done. Who's this American? We don't believe it. We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
The food industry has its own interpretation of the science. I want to hear their opinion about Professor Lustig and his whole sugar is toxic message.
I think Robert Lustig exaggerates the role of sugar. I think a lot of his comments are melodramatic. Some of his comments have been called hysterical. And so when you look at the comments from a number of well-respected academics in New Zealand and around the world, they'll say, look, he's raising the issue about consuming too much sugar, but to say sugar is toxic and sugar is a poison as a standalone statement is patently untrue.
Maybe, but sugar is heavily implicated in bad health outcomes. So why not price it out of easy reach? Why not introduce a sugar tax?
Nowhere in the world has a soda tax made a big difference to obesity, or fat taxes made a big difference to obesity. Because the issue is, it's not the sugar or the fat, it's everything. It's eating too much and not getting enough exercise.
I think it's interesting with regard to sugar, in particular soft drinks, that they are often cheaper on a per litre basis than water is delivered to the same place. And I think we could redress that by having something in the cost structure. And industry haven't done that themselves. They've actually priced the water as being more expensive.
Yeah, it's interesting. They say, oh no, price won't make any difference.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that price seems to be very relevant for the constituency that are drinking the most of this stuff. And it's typically children, often poorer people.
The food industry argues that a sugar tax would only bump up the price of food and hurt those who can least afford it. But the New Zealand Medical Journal has published research saying a 20% tax on soda drinks would not only save lives, but generate millions in revenue for health programs.
Part of learning to be an adult is navigating your way around all those choices, because the choices you make will have an impact on your life. The government can't make you go for a walk around the block.
Completely agree.
The government can't decide what you want to put in your supermarket trolley. And I don't want to live in a country where the government has that kind of control.
When we're talking about people making better choices around nutrition and taking more responsibility, how difficult is that in light of the very skillful, focused and effective marketing campaigns that the people selling this stuff do?
Let's not pretend for 1 second that any marketing campaign can force you to take something off the shelf and put it into your trolley. It still comes down to personal choice and understanding how important moderate eating is.
But the psychologist in me, and I can't help being one, says that they are very good at influencing our behaviour. I mean, so I guess what I'm asking is, in the context of...
I have a different view. I think advertising campaigns give me the information that I need as a consumer, but I'll decide what to put in my trolley.
It's all very well to talk about personal responsibility, but how's this for a little bit of persuasion? I've just been to the supermarket and bought 3 1.5 litre bottles of soft drink for $6. $6. And a lot of the people that I've been talking to say they feel there's little or no personal choice in it because they're addicted or at the very least habituated to sugar. So isn't it time the food industry stepped up and took more responsibility?
Ultimately, the food industry doesn't care what they sell you, as long as they sell you. As long as their profits are untouched, they'll sell you anything you want. And I'm not against the food industry making money. I am against the food industry making money by selling things that hurt people.
So it has to be government level and it has to be across the board because...
I don't see any way around it. I don't see how government can stay out of it. Because how can the food industry work in concert without governmental leadership?
But while the opposing sides dig in, at Yandara School in South Auckland, they're not waiting. They're taking their own action. Here they've banned soft drinks, and they're encouraging real lifestyle change. So how entrenched was all that fast food, sugary drink stuff when you first started?
Oh, incredibly entrenched. It was just the junk food was who we were here. We didn't see any healthy food. We didn't see fruit, we didn't see bread, we didn't see water. So we would see the takeaways coming in for lunch, we would see the takeaways coming for breakfast. That was who we were at that time.
And there's been a marked ripple effect. In terms of changing behaviour at home of parents, has that made a difference?
We've used our children to be the educators of their parents, basically. And it's really lovely when parents come in and tell us funny stories of when they've been to the supermarket, shopping with their 5-year-olds who will say, no, we can't have that. We want to have healthy food, and this is the reason why.
No fast food here, and the principal says they're getting noticeably slimmer. So what have you guys got in your lunch today? You've got an enormous bag of carrots and, oh, look at that, we've got the nuts in there, and you've got oranges and yogurt and fruit. What's better for your teeth? Is it better to drink water or fizzy drink?
Water.
Aha.
Water makes you better.
Yes, it does. Water makes you better.
And you go toilet. And you...
Yes, that's true. So here's the thing. Clearly what Yandara School's achieved is remarkable. They've changed the way that their kids eat, and because of that, they've reduced the amount of obesity in the school. Who likes cucumber? Oh, the kids are better in class, their families are changing, and it's changing the wider community as well. It's all very well to talk about personal responsibility, and a lot of people think that's just people should sort stuff out for themselves. The truth is that that's not how you change behaviour. The psychology of how you change behaviour is you need leadership, and you need focus, and you need follow-up, and you need people to steer the process. It's what the team at Yandara School have done, and it works. Sugar is utterly entrenched in our way of life. Now, so is diabetes. It's one of the greatest health crises we currently face. Every day, it's estimated another 50 Kiwis are becoming diabetic.
Every country on the planet has seen an uptick in obesity. But worse yet, we have seen an uptick in diabetes that actually outclasses the increase in obesity.
Can we turn that round by cutting back on sugar? In Paraparaumu, just outside Wellington, Marianne is living proof that we can.
It smells nice.
It's a good pace. My mother and her sisters have all been diagnosed with late-stage diabetes, and Mum ended up having a kidney transplant, and she was on dialysis before that. She ended up in hospital, and she ended up in a coma.
So you saw diabetes take your mum's life, and then you were told that you were pre-diabetic, so that must have been pretty crushing.
It was incredibly stressful and very, very scary. Gary came home one day after work, after we'd been looking at various diets. He came home and he said, "We're going sugar-free."
Gary, Marianne's husband, is a pilot. He led the charge. Hey Gary, Nigel.
Nigel.
Come round to your place to cook a curry.
Oh, love it. We went through the pantry, went through the fridge. If it had more than 5% sugar, it was gone. We found dextrose or glucose was our sugar substitute, and then started eating real food.
How easy was it to give up sugar? Because did you miss it?
Oh, that first couple of weeks was, probably the first 4 days were the worst.
It smells really nice. Part of me thinks this is fantastic because it's really simple. But where does this fit in terms of all the sugar stuff?
The curry paste that we use have got less than 1 gram of sugar per 100 grams.
Right.
And we advocate with sugar-free cooking that it's not actually sugar-free, but it's within 4 grams per 100.
So you're not like a total zealot, like you don't treat it like it's just toxic. You'll still have a little bit in there.
Yes.
But you just keep it at that lower end.
That's correct.
That simple choice has had a profound effect on Marianne's life and health. What difference has it made for you in terms of the physiology?
It's made 18 kilos difference to me.
And what about the diabetes? What's happened with that?
That's gone. I'm not pre-diabetic now, so that's excellent. So I have absolutely no risk of being diabetic, apparently.
What was your life like before you got rid of sugar? Like, what were you like then?
I was big. Really big. My peak got 106.
And now?
72 and a half.
That's quite a significant drop.
Yeah, it's 25% of my body weight.
It does make me angry because I shouldn't have got pre-diabetic. My mother shouldn't probably have died of diabetes. And it makes me mad they could have avoided it if we didn't have sugar in our lives.
There seems to be this really lovely looking...
That's Gary's berry fat bomb. It's got no sugar at all.
That's really nice. It tastes like it should be really evil. So you don't actually have to become this sort of soulless, joyless, nice stuff-less life. You can still have really nice things.
Mm-hmm.
The results speak for themselves. Here are Gary and Marianne enjoying good food and good health in large part by cutting right back on sugar. When I started this journey, I thought I was doing all right. Moderation in all things, you know. A bit of sugar to go with the exercise. Turns out, I was far from all right. My blood count was too high in the fats that cause strokes and heart attacks. I discovered that our sugar-rich diet and the volumes of soft drinks we're swilling is tipping us into a crippling health crisis.
Kids are coming into the hospital having their teeth out in record numbers. What we do know is that we don't give our 2-year-old kids tobacco to smoke, we don't give our 2-year-old kids alcohol to drink, but we do give our 2-year-old kids soft drinks to drink.
Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's to reduce sugary intake, and the simplest to identify that adds no other nutritional value would be to reduce the consumption of sugary beverages.
Question is, how much proof do you need before it's time to make a change? We need to turn this around. This is a public health crisis, and there's only one way to do it. Get the sugar out of the food.
Well, I cut sugar, and result, my bloods came right, and I lost weight. Sugar is now implicated in all sorts of diseases. I've looked at the research and I'm convinced. Sure, big portion sizes, processed foods and a lack of exercise also contribute. But we can't force people to exercise. We can do something about reducing sugar. If we don't, the burden on our healthcare system doesn't bear thinking about.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.